Studio Tour represents the Sisters of Notre Dame at the United Nations, advocating for women and girls in the areas of migration and human trafficking. And Rachel McCormick and Irvi Cruz, who we actually met at another one of the screenings, Cal, speak closer, and they are a Mexican-American couple who represent and encompass so many of the things we saw in this film that we invited them because they have so much to share on this topic. So I'd like to start with Carlos, and I'd just like to ask you basically what inspired you to make this film, and how that, a little bit about the process and what you thought the impact would be when you made the film.
Well, it all started when Nicolas Valle, the producer of the film, came with the idea of making a film about, not about usually the films that deal with the migration phenomenon had been of stories of people coming to the US and the whole tragic adventure of crossing the border. And when he came to me and asked me if I wanted to make a film about the families that stay behind in Mexico, of course it was very, the first reaction was, are we really going to make more films about this theme? And right now there's too many films about the theme. And the second consideration was, well, I really don't want to, like a documentary is usually thought of as something that is very didactic and that it needs a lot of research and you need to come up with these figures and hard data. And I said, could we make something that is more about the feeling of missing someone? And I wasn't very sure if I wanted to make the film. It was very demanding time-wise, and it was also an important subject that you just don't jump into. And what happened was that I asked him for 2 weeks to think about an angle and to think about how we were going to do this film. And the first thing was, in that week I went to have lunch with my parents. And I said, well, they're offering me this project. And immediately they say, oh, you could go to Don Pascual, and you know that 3 of his sons have been away for 8 years, and I'm sure that we could talk to Raquel in Chiapas and ask her if she wants to share what happened to her husband with you. And suddenly my parents have been involved in educational projects especially in indigenous communities in Mexico. For over 30 years. So I have been, ever since I was a kid, I have been jumping around different sierras with my parents in these projects where my father is an architect and he usually is the one that is in charge of building these schools, and my mother is an educational psychologist, and so she works for the project doing the whole design of the educational program for these schools. And they have been working in Chiapas and in Puebla for over 30 years. So I knew some of these characters beforehand. And it was at that moment when I could make this project personal that I actually could say, yes, let's do this. And let's bring Juan Carlos Rulfo, which is a dear friend of mine and a filmmaker I admire. With his previous film, I think he's one of Mexico's, if not Mexico's most important documentary filmmaker today. And why don't we ask him if he wants to come into the project? And we have, Juan Carlos and I have been friends for over 20 years, and we have always thought of working together. But we hadn't found a project, so this was, so that's how everything started. But it started from a very personal story, it didn't start with, a great ambition. And the other part of the question, it's this is how it started, but it also how this we thought that this would become. And when we were making the film, we were deciding on what the film was going to be. We definitely said, this is a film that is going to deal with the everyday lives. We want to be outside of the film. We don't want to be characters in the film. We want these families to have an opportunity of saying what they feel. And so we are not going to, we are just going to be there. We're going to be witnesses. In order to do that, we had to follow these families for 11 months. We went with them, with the kids to school. We were there whole school day. We came back for lunch. Then we went, we were there when they were doing their homeworks, and then we were there when they were having dinner, and then when they fell asleep, and then we went to another house to sleep, and then we woke up early, and we did that with every family for the period of time that until they say we felt that it was like, okay, this is enough for now. And what happened was that little by little we started being the, I don't know how you say it, but the personal cinematographer of every family. And so we were, when we were at Mexico City, and then suddenly the phone rang, and it was Maricela. Hey, it's going to be the first communion of Evelyn. Are you guys coming? We need the video, And then we said, and then we said, okay, yes, we're going to, we will do it. We're going to be there, but just don't buy the dress before we arrive, okay? And so we established this kind of relationship with the families. But everything you saw on the film, we never asked anyone to do anything, and we didn't ask anyone to say anything in the whole process. What you see is what happened. The day that they left their town is that day. The day they went to say goodbye to their parents is that scene. And the day that the kids came back, it's that day. That's the first time that Don Pascual sees his kids in 8 years. That was exactly the moment. So we just were there locally because the relationships that we could establish with the families.
I'm gonna go along the board so we hear a little from each person, and then we also, it's important if you have questions, we'd really like you, we're gonna have time to pass around the